Y bueno, canales de Telehit, pues bueno, nos encontramos en un especial de lujo aquí en la ciudad de Los Ángeles. Una persona que ya todos ustedes conocen, que ahora tiene su segundo material discográfico como solista. Estoy hablando de Chris Cornell. First of all, thank you very much for the time of this interview.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So now you have a new album. How can you describe the sound of Carry On?
It's fairly organic, kind of warm. There's a lot of rock music, but it sort of drifts into kind of R&B, soul music a little bit, occasionally here and there, and just some sort of experimental kind of indie feeling music. And you know, it's just whatever I'm feeling at the time, I guess. You know, it's more like a, in a sense, a singer-songwriter album, only with some harder rock songs.
But do you try to change the sound that you were been doing lately?
I didn't really try. I think, you know, being in a band, the same thing happened when I was in Soundgarden for a long time. Being in Audioslave for a long time, there's a lot of things we didn't do, and so I just naturally gravitate toward that. On my first solo record, Euphoria Morning, was so different than Soundgarden just because I wanted to do everything I hadn't been doing. This record is a little more mixed up, you know, there's like some actual riff rock songs on it, which I haven't written in that style for a long time, and some things that are reminiscent of Soundgarden, and then a lot of things that are very, you know, reminiscent of Euphoria Morning and other solo work I've done. So
Now, the first single is going to be Arms Around Your Love.
yes.
Why do you choose that as the first single?
You know what? I didn't really choose it. I kind of make albums, and I feel like they're just sort of like albums when I was a kid, where I like every song on it. So I usually don't care what record companies want as a single. Any song's fine. And people just really kind of jumped on that song and thought that should be a single, and I said, okay.
My favorite one is Not Such Thing. This is my favorite song of the album. And the great thing about this album, like you were saying, is that you have a mix of different sounds in every song. I mean, some of the songs are more rock, more other songs are more like relaxing.
You know, I hadn't thought about it till you just said that just now. Like, Arms Around Your Love I wrote and made the demo when I was in Paris, where I live half the time. And No Such Thing I wrote here in Los Angeles when I was making the record. And there's like when I look at like different flavors of songs, part of it like is that I wrote and recorded a lot of it on demos in Paris, which is a very different feeling than in the United States. And people have asked me if that affects my writing, and I usually say I don't really know, but you know, maybe it does.
What could be the biggest difference if you compare Euphoria Morning with Carry On?
The biggest difference is that Euphoria Morning was recorded over 7 months or so with Alan Johannes and Natasha Schneider at their house. So we would record some days, we would take a lot of time off, we would take week-long breaks, and it was a very studio-oriented record where we sat around and made a lot of sounds, and Alan and I played a lot of guitar parts and little things, so we just took our time. And Carry On is very much like live band in a room playing the songs, and very organic. It was recorded at a much faster pace. It was like 60 days to record and mix the whole record. And there was a total of 17 or 18 songs. We just kind of cut it down to 13 and put You Know My Name on it. But that's the biggest difference. And also, like I was saying before, Euphoria Morning, there was really no hard rock on it. And on this record, there's a few songs that are more riff-oriented and more, I guess, rock-oriented. But new too, as well. Like No Such Thing to me, it starts out very riff rock, but then it goes into really a chordal, kind of somber, almost crooning part, similar to like You Know My Name. And that's something, I guess, maybe it's a style that I'm kind of accidentally making mine. I'm not sure.
and now, talking about yourself, I know that at some point of your life when you were a kid, you were a really the Beatles fan.
Yeah, that was when I really started listening to music as an activity. Rather than just hearing music in the background while I'm hanging out with friends, I would go into my bedroom by myself, and I had an old stereo that folds up into a suitcase, yeah. and with a turntable, and I just listened to Beatles records for about 2 years. That's what I did for fun, and that turned into listening to other albums. But that's really where sort of learned what I thought a rock band was supposed to be. That you could write and sing a song like Helter Skelter, and you could write and sing a song like Yesterday, put them on the same record and it would make perfect sense. That's what rock's supposed to be. And I think that I have to say that has been my biggest influence over the years in making records. Probably Bad Motor Finger is the most cohesive of any record I've ever been involved with, where that's a hard rock record with some experimental edge to it, but that's what that is. Pretty much every other record has gone into a lot of other territories, and you know, it's I think it's because of being a kid and listening to the Beatles.
And now, do you remember how do you know, like, okay, I could be good at music, not just as a hobby, but as a way to live?
I think it happens more from the outside. I think it happens when people tell you. I definitely didn't ever think that this was something that I would be able to do for a living, let alone like be successful at it and be able to travel around the world. But from the time that I started, I got encouragement from people, even from the time I was a child. And that encouragement kind of kept me going. I loved music as a fan, and would still be a hardcore fan of music no matter what. But fans of mine are the people that kind of kept me going and pushed me along and said, what you're doing is good and we like it. That also gave me sort of the original manifesto of, if I write music and record music that inspires me on some level, somebody else will like it. It might not always be the same people, and it might be more people sometimes, and it might be less people other times, but there'll always be someone out there that likes it. And that's been true, I think, all the way up through Carry On.
And also at the time, is that true that at some point you started getting like depressions?
I've had that from probably my early teen years, from like 14.
What could be the biggest lesson?
Well, one of the lessons is depression can be a good thing because it can sort of force you to change things in your life that are bothering you. If you're depressed because, say, you're in a bad relationship, which is something that happened to me, I really put up with it a lot longer than I should have because I didn't want to go through the pain and just the trouble of changing my life in that way. But depression sort of forced me into eventually a lot of bad behavior, and then having to make a decision, that I have to be strong, and I didn't deal with it very well. It was sort of cowardly, and then eventually I had to be brave and do what I was supposed to do and make the decisions, and change my life. And so on that level, depression can be really good. I also think it can be something where in writing music, if you allow yourself to feel it while you're writing music, you can really change your own mood